Prabandh project, and on behalf of Drum and Brass, we'd like to welcome you to this research project, which is particularly focused on Prabandh, which is a particular style of vocal in Indian classical music, which existed more than almost 2000 years ago. And myself, I'm Preetham Singh, will be interviewing a series of artists who we have as part of the project. And today we are honored to have with us Malyaban Chatterjee from Calcutta. Okay, so having understood the 6 elements of Prabandh and the 4 dhatus, the 4 parts of a Prabandh, if we move forward then to say, like you mentioned, the 15th century when Drupad, which was actually known as Dhruvapad before, and Drupad came into vogue and actually was at its height between the 15th and 16th century. And so if we try to understand the Prabandh elements in the Drupad context and how they moved forward and used those elements in the structure of Drupad. So, I mean, we mentioned the Nom Tom, the Tanak part. Obviously, there's a structure to the stances, which would be the Virudh and the Pad from Prabandh. Virudh meaning the praise element within the words, Pad being the stances, the verses, structure of the verses. So that would be the main body of the composition. And from what you just explained, that Udagraya, Melapak, Dhruva, Pog would be the Sthai, Antara, Sanchari, and a Pog. So in the Alap, the Tanak part, the Nom Tom, is used, the syllables. So that element is taken from Prabandh and used, and is called Alap in Drupad, but it's actually the Tanak part. The Tanak element. Could you just give an example of a Nom Tom?
Yeah, actually, to be very clear, from the Prabandh style, the Drupad style is coming, and from the Drupad style, the Khayal style is coming. It's the but the origin of Khayal is the Drupad. And the other thing is that the Alap, as you said, the Alap portion is very big in the Drupad style, which consists of the Nom Tom Alap, Om Anantari Om. And the same thing we are doing in Khayal is a Vistar.
Okay.
So the Alap in our music, we hardly do any Alap, maximum 2-3 minutes. But the same thing we are doing after the Vilambit portion and taking the words of the Vilambit, the Sthai, instead of the Nom Tom, and we are using the same thing in the Khayal, which is called the Vistar.
Okay, so that's the actually elaborating on the scale using those syllables within the composition.
It is. So it's the same thing actually, but it in a different way we are presenting. So if you listen to Khayal, you can understand that we are doing the Nom Tom Alap in our words with those Alap, and the other, there is one basic difference, as you know, everyone knows that they used to use the straight notes. There is no Shruti, usage of Shruti, but in our Khayal we used to do more of the Shrutis. Like I'm giving you one example. Like the Rag Bairagi. Sa ni sa re ma pa ni sa re ba sa. In the Drupad style, we are doing the Alap with the Nom Tom. Da re da ni da ri re re na da na de da ri re na no to da na na de re na. this is the style of the Nom Tom in the Drupad. The same thing we are doing in the Khayal. This is the difference. Same thing we are doing in a different way, in a different language.
Okay. I actually did want to keep the Drupad and the Khayal separate, but it's actually good to see the difference between the two. So Drupad and then which followed by Khayal. So, okay, we can put both elements together to have a comparison of both.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the Nom Tom, the syllables used.
Yeah.
And actually the words, going back to Pad, the stances also in Drupad, we have the Bani, the 4 Banis, and which give the expression of the 4 different ways of expressing the words. No?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Would you be able to give something, an insight to that?
Yeah. Khelata hari radha sang jhum jhum ke khelata hari radha. This is the style of the usage of the words in the Drupad. So there have the meaningful distribution of the notes of the lyrics of the literature. In the literature is very important, very, very important in Drupad style. So it should be treated very nicely and accordingly. So that is the importance of the distribution of the notes on Drupad style.
And then we have the part, the percussion syllables. In Drupad, again, they are used similar to Prabandh in the way that they are just included within the context of the composition. Is it the same with Khayal?
Same with Khayal, absolutely. Like I sang. It's the same thing we are using. So more or less, it's coming from the Drupad.
Malyavanti, if we could just carry on from that point of the syllables used from the percussion in the Bandish.
It's the same thing. So these are the words from the Pakhwaj and the Tabla we used to implement in the, basically, you know, it is the Tribat and the Chaturang we used to sing with those.
Okay, and the Tirbat and Chaturang, these are actually different types of composition. They're not Khayal actually, but Khayal from the Khayal style, but a separate composition.
It is.
Okay, and again, as you mentioned earlier, with the 4 parts from the Datus, from the Prabandh, which have transformed into the 4 parts of the Drupad, the Sthai, Antara, Sanchari, and Apog. How is it with Khayal then? Do we still have the 4 parts or not?
Not really. The only 2 parts, the Sthai and the Antara. Hardly we are using the Sanchari, maximum 3 parts, but it is very rare. Basically, it is only 2 portions, Sthai and Antara, the first and the second stanza, and it is not that much big.
Right.
Not that lengthy.
And then with the Drupad, the progression of Drupad is particularly with the rhythm aspects or not?
Of course. Drupad is from the first note. So far, I know that it is set to a beat. Later on, we used to use the chautal or the thamar or other tals, but it's more like the South Indian music. It's the implication of the South Indian music that it is set in a beat. You can see or you can follow that they are using the alap in a rhythmic way. So that have the importance of the rhythm from the very first of the Dhrupad style.
Okay, and then the Khayal style, how is the progression in the Khayal? You said there was two parts, the Sthai and the Yantra. What is the progression within the context of the composition within the rag? What elements are used?
The Khayal system, you know, there is the Vilambit portion, then the Drut portion, and there is the composition on the Vilambit, Sthai, Vilambit Antara, and at the end they have the 15 minutes Madhulai, Sthai, Antara, and different beats, different types of tans, and different types of sargams, usage of layers. So it's a total process. It's a different process.
Could we get an example of some of the ornamentations that you just explained, how they are different elements that are used within the context of Khayal? So, for example, if you were singing a bandish, a composition in Khayal Madle, and then you was to do an alap, how would that sound?
Yeah. Suppose I'm singing one raga on Vairav. When we are not singing the Vilambit, the slow portion of a composition, then we start with the Madhulai, and it should be on the 80 BPM. Chala jaye sona moli dhuna sasana nadiya. It is in very low tempo. Jage mori kaise jao mori sajani chala jai sona murari. I'm using the vistar whole part in the Madhulai. Jai so jai suna bodhi. This is the usage of the vistar in the Madhulai.
And could you give examples of others, sort of a little faster with the sargam and the tan and little gamak?
Sure. Afterwards, we will take a different tempo. Chala jaye sona murali dona, chala jaye sona murali dona. Chala jaye sona murali dona.
And just a little small portion of a gamak.
Yeah, gamak is emphasis on a particular note, and you have to use you have to know how to use the gamak. It's the usage of the air coming out. So on a particular note, we are using the air for twice or thrice. This is the gamak.
Wow. So, I mean, there are various elements and ornamentations that are used to develop compositions with even two parts. We have so much going on within that context that, you know, it's not that it's been reduced, because there are so many other elements that are make up for that. And so that's basically the structure of the Prabandh, the Dhrupad elements and the Khayal. And you also mentioned the Triveda Chaturang. If we could get an example of a tarana, which is very much just the Tanakh element, which is the syllables nom, tom, tana, syllables used as the main body of the words of the composition. So if you could give us an example of a tarana.
Okay, sure. Sare ga ma ba da ni sa ni da ba ma ga re sa ta na na de de tom ta na to na na de re na ta na de de tom ta na to ta na de re na o de da ni de ta na de re da na de de tom ta na de. This is the language we're using in tarana, and some people used to do akatan in the tarana, but it shouldn't be. We have to use the tarana bol in the ta na na de re na da de da na ta na de de tom ta na de na.
Some exceptional examples. And that's actually a very interesting point, that there are certain structures and rules that are applied. We can't just do it so freely that we can make up anything. Again, it goes back to the grammar and the learning, where you would know that, otherwise you wouldn't know.
As you know, Pritamji, our music is very much scientific, and they have no way to mess it out. And some people used to listen the YouTube, used to snatch from here and there, but it is not music. We have to go through a process. There's no way out.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to that point where you can instantly tell whether someone has learned properly or not from the usage and the grammar. So this is actually, we've gone from very beginning, from the actually from the Vedic period, because you explained that the 3 notes, the 4 notes, and then going to Prabandh, where it was formulated into a composition type based on the heartbeat, as we have learned today. And the 6 elements, the 4 parts within the Prabandh compositions, and the Drupad, how that transformed to Drupad, and then how that has been again reproduced within the context of Khayal, and the different elements and the ornamentations, which are quite different, which are not used in the same way in Drupad, and also the different composition types, as you just explained and gave an example of a tarana. So, I mean, I hope this gives a better understanding to everyone of the different styles and how Prabandh actually is the ancestral vocal style, which has given birth to the different styles that have come along the way after that. So I just wanted to end sort of the interview with one key element. Obviously, I mean, we keep going back to the element of, you know, how important it is to learn. And obviously, to learn properly, you need to learn from a guru, a learned master. And obviously, this takes so much, you know, dedication and surrender and practice, which is kind of the question that was asked earlier, which we'll come to in a second. But I mean, it's a whole surrender of yourself. And obviously, you have to have some kind of mentality to, it's not for everyone. Now, I know for many people go to learn from a guru and don't last 2 days. You know, Ravi Shankarji writes in his book, you know, I saw many students come and go because they couldn't stand the Baba's, you know, intensity, and somehow he stuck it out for 6.5 years, and look what he became. But he said many students came and wouldn't stay more than 2 days. So can you explain what kind of mentality you need to, you know, to progress, to have that dedication to practice, and what effect that has on you as a person in terms of, you know, sort of mental health and physical well-being, how you transform yourself? Because obviously, if you're doing this for so many years, the same practice and discipline, you'd become a different person. So can you explain? I don't know if I'm asking a question, really. It's asking your experience and what you feel about how a person is transformed physically and mentally through this discipline.
When I went to my guru. As you know, I'm from a very. My father was a big officer, and he had the ability to teach me. When I went to my guru, the first day he told me that you are coming from a rich family, can't do music. The hard work you have to do, you can't do it. I was very depressed that I love music. I want to learn music. I want to take it as my profession. Well, forget about taking profession. You can't do the practice. He told me that keep it in your mind that you have to take the rice with your ears. आंसू के साथ अपना चावल खाना पड़ेगा. कर सकते हो क्या?
Wow.
So what he tried to say, I didn't understand that time. I said, yes, I will do hard work. But now I can understand what he wanted to say.
Can I just explain that? Because that's wow. Your guru tried to explain the pain you would have to go through to attain this music, which he explained by saying that you would have to boil your rice with your tears.
It is.
So, I mean, that's how much pain you will have to adhere to progress.
It is. And later on, he said that don't stop your practice until the day of your death. You have to do the riyaz. You can't leave it. If you leave it, he will leave you. So, and this is the way we are briefed.
And then this discipline that you adopted, it's a mental transformation.
Of course. So
what drove you to be able to do that? You know, those hours and dedication of practice. What drove you to that?
It is the impact of the guru, actually, from whom you are learning, who is teaching you, what is his stature, what is his vibes, how he's saying the music, what is his lifestyle. It will give you an impact. The way I learned from my guru, you can see my guru's picture there. He was the same person, and his style, his words, and his way of treating the life, his style of practicing impressed me, and I ran after him, and I did everything. I left my job, I left my higher studies, I left my family, everything, and I don't know what I have done. I have done nothing, but I'm trying to follow the way he has shown me. So this should be the way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from what we understand, I'm sure everyone who's listening will say that, you know, you have done exceptionally excelled and done exceptionally well. So obviously, with all this discipline and practice, one becomes a very different person and has to remain so. I mean, disciplined throughout. No?
Of course.
Thank you so much for that insight. I mean, there's so much to take from that and so much more to study within the context of everything you just explained today.